Good evening. On the bench tonight, I've got the remnants here of the Super Tigre S75 engine that Floyd sent me that was in a cub that went nose in into the ground. If you saw that video, I removed the crankshaft and it was bent quite badly. And that crankshaft has now been given to a friend of mine, Jim, who is working on straightening the crankshaft on the Sato 50 engine, but he wanted to use this as a test bed to see if he could do anything with that and kind of hone his technique. This one here is another Super Tigre S75 engine that I picked up from eBay based on somebody, a commenter on that video saying, hey, I think I see one of these, or there's one of these S75s on eBay for a parts engine. It's really cheap. So I went and found it and I bought it. So I've got this one here. This carb is locked up, but I mean it turns over freely. It's just a really dirty engine. So this was going to be the parts engine to get this one working. And the only thing that really is kind of sucks about this one is they have two different carbs, or two different ages of carb. This carb here had a different type of throttle arm on it as opposed to this. So this one's got an external low-speed needle and this one's got like a recessed one. So the carb, that part is different. And I kind of like this one better, but this thing is broken and there's just no way that you can find that replacement part, at least not that I found. So I've got probably a good carb here. So earlier today, I read the Clarence Lee article from the May 1988 issue of Engine Clinic where they were talking about this Marvel Mystery Oil and Marvel Air Tool Oil and Marvel products. And there was a Joe Esposito that had written a letter who had worked with Marvel Oil Company, and he mentioned some things about that. So I am going to do what was suggested in that video, which was I've got basically this whole quart of Marvel Mystery Oil, and I've got a nice empty bucket here. It's like a 5-pound bucket. And I'm just going to put this Super Tigre engine in it. It rotates freely and all that good stuff. It's just the carb doesn't move and high-speed needle is pretty tight. So for no reason other than just an experiment, I'm going to put this thing in here and just fill up as much and pour all of this Marvel Mystery Oil in here and just kind of use this bin with this Marvel Mystery Oil as just a place to soak engines. And this was something that Esposito, Joe Esposito, suggested. He's like, just put a tired old engine, he didn't use those words, into some Marvel Mystery Oil, and he was talking Marvel Mystery Oil, which is what this is, and just let it sit in there and get into all the nooks and crannies and get everywhere in the engine. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I went out in the garage and I found this, and I've got like 2 others of these. I must have really stocked up on this stuff, and then I haven't used it in years. So I'm basically just doing that. And I am going to just put a cover on this thing. Maybe see if I can kind of angle that so the carb gets in there a little bit more. And let that sit overnight and take it out and see what happens. Maybe the carb will free up. If nothing else, the engine will be really well lubricated. I don't think there's any need in me doing that to any of these other parts. Like I said, I'm not sure, this engine seemed like it's a pretty low time engine. Maybe, I don't know, but what I'm going to do is get one good running engine between this and this one here. And that's this little project. Okay, so here on the table I've got both of these Super Tigre S75 engines they're both cleaned up now. And this one here are the remnants of the Florida Floyd crash. And this one here is, for the most part, it's that parts engine. But I've also, before I started this video, I started kind of sorting the best parts to make one good engine. Now, I ended the previous segment by saying this parts engine, I was just going to let it soak in Marvel Mystery Oil overnight. I did that. All it did was really thoroughly lubricate the entire engine. Obviously, it has no cleaning abilities unless I sat there and scrubbed on it, which I didn't. So it was just one of those things. I just tried it just for the hell of it because I read that in the article. But all it did was it did really, really lubricate the engine really well because there was oil in every crevice. So after that, I just kind of took it out and I wiped it all down and decided I was just going to completely disassemble the engine and I totally tore the carbs down too, at least that one. Took everything apart, put it in the put it in the ultrasonic cleaner with the ZEP 15282 cleaning powder, and it did a fantastic job. Let me zoom in a bit more here. I mean, this is probably, yeah, this is the front housing of that. But I mean, you can tell how much cleaner this looks. It looks fantastic. Now, I think this is the head from the Florida Floyd engine because it looked like it was in the best shape. Like I said, I'm picking and choosing all the best parts to make one good engine. This is the stock part there. This prop hub came perfectly clean, which is nice. Obviously, this is the only crankshaft I've got because the other one was bent like a banana. I haven't done any of my little sanding stuff on this crankshaft yet. But this carb, the carb thing is the only thing that really kind of bothers me, is that they're both really nice carbs, but they're very different, and I know it's going to be hard to see the differences here because this one's disassembled, but this carb here is the later version, and it's got an internal low-speed screw. This one had an external needle valve, high-speed or external low-speed needle, and a throttle arm, and of course the spray bar for this looks like this, and that's what the high-speed needle looks like. So it's a lot older looking style than this. But the reason I'm not using this carb is because the throttle arm piece here is broken off, which really sucks because it is like one of these little clamp things where you can loosen that thing up and pull it off, but finding a replacement throttle arm has not been really feasible. I've looked and looked and I haven't been able to find one. So, and I don't have a good way of I don't know if that's a metal piece or plastic. I don't have a way of just making that new again. So I'm choosing to go with this other older style carb that has the barrel looks like this. So that's kind of the only unfortunate thing. But I mean, even this engine cleaned up really nice. I mean, that stuff that's a really good cleaner. The other thing I noticed that I thought was interesting was between the two engines, they're both S75s, but the rear covers look very different. They're the exact same bolt pattern, but for whatever reason, the hole here is different. They look the same this way, but this way they just look different, which is kind of funny. So I just took the shinier one to put here. And so that's where we stand with this. What I really need to do now is, I have sets of bearings for a G90, but they're not the same size as this. So I need to get online and get some, that doesn't actually feel too bad. Get a new set of bearings, get sets of gaskets, and then we'll be ready to reassemble this thing, and I'll be able to get at least one good Super Tigre S75 engine operational, even though it doesn't have an exhaust. And I'm just trying to source an exhaust at this time, but I haven't come up with one yet. So that's the status of this little project.